Hi, I'm Eve Simone. Please subscribe to my channel for a daily dose of double bass. Well, I'm going to sit down today, which is unusual for me, but I got a bunch of stuff to say, and I figured I'd take a load off my feet. So today I'm addressing some concepts that were brought up by a subscriber, Connie. She reached out to me and said that she wanted me to let her know which clef I was playing in when I was making my videos. So at first I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. But then I was kind of curious, like, what's it all about? Like, what difference does it make? Why is she interested in that? So she wrote back to me and explained it. And she said that she's a beginner, an adult beginner. And when she plays the piano, she can play bass clef and treble clef with her, left hand and right hands respectively. But if she tries to play treble clef on the bass guitar, it feels like, I forget how she put it, like I think she said it's either disorienting or she feels like she's gonna unlearn a clef. So I thought I'd just share some ideas about this. First of all, I don't think you're gonna unlearn a clef, but let's see as we have this discussion. First of all, just to level set, did you know the double bass is actually, the sound is actually an octave below what we're reading in the sheet music? So that's right, that's why in an orchestra, when the cellos and the double basses are playing the same line, that happens, especially during the classical period of classical music, you'll hear that the double basses are an octave below. So that's one thing to think about. Another thing that comes out is for the double bass, we have what's called solo strings. And so our regular strings, which you play in the orchestra and other places, it's G, D, D, A, E. But solo strings are one step higher. So they're A, E, B, F sharp. So what winds up happening is if you play music that's intended for you to play it on solo strings, which generally is solo music, you're playing it and reading it on the page, but it's actually one step higher, which I always found that difficult, even though I don't really have perfect pitch, but I just somehow found it a little bit off. So that's one thing to think about. But I want to go through a few topics today. I want to talk about reading clefs, transcribing music, transposing music, embellishing music, and improvising music. And I realize that's a lot to cover, so I'm going to just kind of hit the highlights just to give Connie and perhaps a few other people some ideas. So when I play the double bass, I generally have the opportunity to read three clefs. Bass clef, which makes sense, it's a bass instrument, right? Tenor clef, and treble clef. Now, you'll notice I don't get to play alto clef. Why is that? Is it for violas only? I don't know. But I'm trying to think about it, and in my whole life, I've never played alto clef. So I feel like something's lacking in my life, and I'm gonna need to rectify that. But anyway, so I play the three other clefs. And speaking of which, there's treble clef, but for violin parts, once they get up here, see that in the bottom there? Can you see that? Once they have like 10, 3, 6, 8, 10 lines above the treble clef, I really think it'd be nice if they invented a clef that was higher than treble clef. Does such a thing exist? Comment and let me know. So anyway, when I play orchestral music, it's generally in bass clef. When I play solos, especially if it's transcribed from cello music, it's often in bass clef and tenor clef. And then when I'm playing music from other instruments, like when I'm trying to work on this Tchaikovsky violin concerto, that's written in treble clef. But one point I want to get across here is that, obviously, okay, in the orchestra, you have to play what's written because that's just how it is there, But for my purposes, having fun and relearning the bass and playing on YouTube, I just kind of transcribe music and transpose it as needed. So let me give you an example of that. I'm playing the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto. Here's the second movement. Okay, so it's in treble clef, and it starts D, G. And if I were to play it as written, where that would be on the double bass normally, that would be here. But I know if I start there, it's going to get so high I'm going to run out of notes. So I figured, you know what, I'm just going to start with an open string. So I'm playing it down here. Now, what I did do, because I've been too lazy to write this out by hand or learn how to use the computer, see how I highlighted in pink? Those are open strings. And that's just to remind me as I'm reading this. That kind of helps remind me what octave I should be in, because I have to go back to those open strings. But what I'm trying to say in general, though, is you can play those same notes any place you want, you know, and that's really low, but I felt like playing it there right now. No one's gonna stop me, you know? It's very free. So that's kind of like transcribing and transposing. So I would suggest, Connie, like when you're playing on your electric bass and reading in treble clef, just think about those note names and what they actually are, and try playing those notes in different places on your electric bass, right? So just like I can play this opening here. Can play that in 3 spots easily. I could probably play it up here if I were more hardworking. But you know, so like what I'm saying is play the tune in different places on your electric bass, and it kind of, you know, you have a connection between what you're reading and where it's supposed to be on the instrument, but you can also kind of leave that behind and free yourself and do different things. And also, you know, that kind of gets to the place of transposing. So, you know, I was playing the Telemann Sonata for you. This one, F major, number 2. So like, let's have a little fun with it, right? So it's written in F major, right? So I have to start, you know, I go. But what are those notes? It's a F, a C, an A. What if I want to play it in a different key? Why not? So my point is, and a really good example of that that's perhaps a little bit easier to think about is like, you know, Beethoven 9. Ode to Joy, right? So, you know, that covers D, E, F sharp, G, A, right? So that's cool, but what if you want to do something different? I don't know why, but maybe you just want to. Fun to do to kind of free your mind on these things is sometimes, you know, play a little lick like that and just play it in different places. You know, you could play it going up using a chromatic scale, so stepwise. You could play it in your circle of fifths, you know. C and then G and then so on. So, you know, do whatever you want to do. And then the next step to me is like embellishing. And good example of this is like Paganini's works. There's a lot of other examples, you know, Bach's Goldberg variations. But anyway, like, what if I'm playing something and I just want to do something else with it? What if I think, hey, I want to practice my spiccato? Bad example. I do need to practice my spiccato. See, though, that was just embellishing it. You could do different things, you know, whatever you want to do. And then the final step is improvising. And I'll probably stop there because, you know, I'll tell you a little secret. I'm not too good at improvising. But sometimes I play music that's in my head or my heart or my ears or wherever it is. But I'm not too good at that. But I mean, I think the point, though, is that once you're doing all these different things, you can start with a melody and get somewhere new. I'd like to get to that point myself eventually. But I have to say, you know, I was raised in music, reading the notes on the page. And while I did take jazz lessons in graduate school, and I had the opportunity to take lessons with Tyrone Brown, who played bass for Max Roach, but still, I'm not good at it. And to me, like, the ability to play a walking bass line is just amazes me, you know? So if you're out there doing that, take my hat off to you. But anyway, Connie, this is just to give you some thoughts. So to summarize, when you play your bass guitar and you're reading treble clef, I don't think you're going to unlearn a clef. You know what I would suggest you do as a kind of easy transition is, like, look at some of the piano music you play and you're already comfortable playing in bass clef and treble clef. And try playing the right hand of the piano, the treble clef part, on your bass guitar. And let me know how that goes for you. Because I think if it's a melody you're already familiar with, you may find it easier to then play that melody in different places on your bass guitar. But, you know, in summary, I agree. These things can be disorienting. I mean, my little project here trying to play the Tchaikovsky violin concerto is disorienting because I'm reading treble clef. I'm playing it an octave lower. In reality, since it's a double bass, I'm playing it 2 octaves lower. So, yeah, I'm a little confused, you know? But it actually, I can feel the wheels turning and it's getting easier as I do it. So, yeah, I'll give it a try. And I would say play it wherever you want to play it. Any key, any location, you know. Have fun with it. Bye now.